Hi, everyone, and welcome to this special series of Cell and Gene, the podcast called FDA Fridays. I'm your host, Erin Harris. For 4 consecutive Fridays, I'll share my conversations with some of the best and brightest regulatory experts in cell and gene therapy. So, why am I doing this and why now? By dedicating a special series to a variety of pressing regulatory topics, I'm really trying to demystify current guidance, highlight tangible lessons from recent approvals and missteps, and share actionable strategies straight from experts and insiders. This first episode features my conversation with Kate Spratt, strategic and non-clinical regulatory consultant at Spratt Advanced Cell and Gene Therapy Regulatory Consulting. Kaye's extensive professional experience spans her previous tenures at BridgeBio, Rejuvenate Bio, and more. Here, Kaye highlights the Office of Therapeutic Products, or OTP, at the FDA as maintaining highly consistent and timely communication with sponsors, especially following a recent reorganization. Now, speaking of recent reorganization, at the time of this recording, Dr. Vinay Prasad was the Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research, or CBER's, lead after the resignation of the previous director, Dr. Peter Marks. And you'll hear Kaye briefly discuss Dr. Prasad. However, as of July 31st, 2025, the new acting director is Dr. George Tidmarsh. He assumed this position following the sudden departure of Dr. Vinay Prasad. During our talk, Kate emphasizes the importance of early and continuous engagement with regulatory authorities, especially through structured meetings like Interact and pre-IND sessions. We cover CMC readiness, filing for RMAT and other accelerated pathways, and more. I'm excited to share FDA Fridays with you. These are important and timely conversations, and I hope you find them valuable and thought-provoking. And so without further ado, here's my conversation with Kate Spratt. Enjoy. Hi, Kaye. How are you? Welcome to Cell and Gene, the podcast.
Good morning, and I'm doing well. And thank you for the invitation. And I'm eagerly anticipating our discussion today. Some very important topics for discussion.
I couldn't agree more. And that's why I invited you to be one of our expert guests on this special FDA Friday series. So thank you for your time. And with that said, let's just jump right into it. So I want to talk a little bit about OTP, or Office of Therapeutic Products.
Mm-hmm.
So since the establishment of OTP within CBER, what would you say have been the sort of tangible impacts that you've seen on whether it be communication or timelines or even clarity in the regulatory process for cell and gene therapy developers?
Great. That's a great question to start out with. And the Office of OTP has been very consistent in their communication, timely responses to questions, and the subject matter expertise has increased over the past 2 years since there's been that reorganization. So the message is very, very consistent. They've been open to discussion, and I'm very happy with the way they have dealt with sponsors in their questions and responses. So very pleased with them. Communication has been very, very consistent. Their role in their guidance from the reviewers has been detailed, has scientific rigor attached to it, which shows you the subject matter expertise of the reviewers, which is very, very important. And again, the key element at OTP and all of FDA is the development of safe and efficacious therapeutic products. That has I'd say it's actually increased or been maintained at OTP. So very happy with the reorganization. Recent changes, and I think we'll probably get into that with Nicole Verdun leaving and Rachel Anatole leaving the office. The jury is still out as to what reorg will take place within OTP with new CBER director Vinay Prasad. So we're anxious. I think the regulatory community certainly is awaiting those changes and how they will affect early interactions and late stage development. I think those will be important aspects of what we will need to learn in the future, what guidances will be issued, what will be the effect on those guidance. Will the reviewers, will there be a knowledge gap based on reviewers leaving? How will that be managed? And we're eagerly awaiting that. And we know that it takes years and years for new guidances, not years and years, but a long time for new guidances to be put in place, and how the those new guidances will be executed. So I think with the new changes, it's execution, what changes will take place, and how that will affect sponsors who are eagerly awaiting their clinical development programs. But it's exciting. It's an exciting time. And one thing that the new commissioner, as well as the CBER director, have discussed on their recent listening tours, which is a new kind of thing for FDA. Listening tours and speaking to CEOs as well as principal investigators and academic investigators, is that they are focusing on drug development and expediting drug development. So how that will be done is unknown at this time, but it is certainly welcome. And what the impact will be on the regulatory landscape, where my interest is, as well as the drug development, is an unknown at this time. But I think it's moving in a positive direction for sure.
That's great to hear, and I echo your sentiment that the focus is and should be on drug development, and that the outlook is positive. Even despite maybe what's going on the VC side of things, from a regulatory perspective, we're moving in the right direction. You mentioned consistency a few times just now, and I want to drill down on that a little bit. Has the OTP structure improved consistency, would you say, in feedback or specialization within review divisions, particularly for complex modalities like gene-edited cell therapies or in vivo gene therapies?
Sure. I think there is consistency. Well, again, it depends on the product. It's all product specific, but I think as they see more of these programs, more INDs, more interacts, more pre-IND meetings and type D meetings come from sponsors who are in the gene editing area, that consistency is increasing in the message. I mean, for example, off-target analysis. I think they've become more consistent in ways to manage off-target, and also product development, and also in the type of toxicity studies that are required. Can you now do more in vitro studies versus in vivo studies? That's a messaging that is being discussed among sponsors. So I think there is definitely that consistency. And with the creation of, the organization of people who are specialized in gene editing at OTP, they have a good understanding of the science that is being developed. So they know how to ask the right questions. I've been in meetings where I've been impressed with the level of details by the reviewers on the subject matter, so they understand what the issues are, and they demonstrate some flexibility as well. And with reviewers, it's always a teaching moment as well. So you are able to discuss, teach, and also receive good guidance that could lead to the successful implementation of some of their guidance, their comments that you have received as a sponsor and lead to the successful development of your particular drug product. But highly, again, drug specific, but the communication that I have seen have been fairly consistent, and there's a certain degree of flexibility. You can, if you come in with a good scientific rationale and justification for the particular method or analysis that you have proposed, it's a discussion.
Mhm.
And that is very, very important. And, it's typical for them to go on to mute to say, we want to discuss, and that's a good thing. I think the subject matter expertise is definitely present. There are a lot of new reviewers, of course, but I've been impressed with a lot of the reviewers who have been who have been on the review list from certain recent projects. So very
Good,
consistent, good communication.
good. Great to hear. Um, I want to talk a little bit about early engagement and its relationship with OTP. So I know it seems that everything we talk about within cell and gene, the answer is when should you do this? And the answer seems to always be, yesterday. And the message is always, start with the end in mind. Um, what's your take on how OTP is handling early engagement opportunities like Interact, pre-IND meetings? And would you say sponsors are getting more useful or actionable feedback under the new structure?
Yes. Another good question. And I think the key issues here are actionable feedback. So let's start out with Interact. The earliest engagement was not, well, I say type D, as in dog, is in there as well as early engagement with OTP. So they have been granting Interact meetings by Zoom or written response only. And those interactions I have found to be very key to getting guidance on actionable items. It avoids delays and risk that could be an issue in your program. Uh, it helps optimize your development strategy, and it also enhances communication efficiency. And you can clarify your regulatory requirements during those interact meetings. I know they are very, very focused meetings. There is a guideline regarding the number of questions, the limitation on the page requirement, and try for sponsors to put in all of that information and still meet the page requirement. It's sometimes a task to do that. So it's the responsibility of the sponsor to be very focused, to ask the questions that you need guidance on and that can lead to actionable items, and avoid the office not coming, and avoid not coming back to you and saying your program is too late stage for an interact meeting. So those are the challenges. But I know they are granting interact meetings, and the reviews on those, the comments have been informative, leading to actionable items. But it is the responsibility of the sponsor to ask good questions, um, and be very focused in how you develop your meeting package, your briefing document for those meetings. Very, very important. But ask the questions. I think a lot of sponsors go in with, well, if they say no, well, they often say no, but if you have good scientific justification and rationale for what you are proposing, they are willing to listen. So there's flexibility in that office. I found the interact meetings to be very informative and engaging, very, very, very engaging.
Good, good. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about BLA approvals and regulatory expectations. So, with more BLA approvals in our space, have you noticed a shift in regulatory expectations, particularly around durability data, CMC readiness, or comparability? What has your experience been?
Yes, I definitely, I'm not currently working on any programs that are at the BLA stage, but just from what I see in regulatory landscape, reading blogs or press releases from other from companies, that's certainly that those elements are very, very important. So the regulatory expectations clearly are high for what you see in CMC, CMC readiness, durability data, and manufacturing scalability as
Mhm.
well too. And of course, the safety database that you have developed. So those regulatory expectations, I think, will increase in the future with the new commissioner and CBER director in place. That will continue, but that's always been a hallmark for uh, BLA acceptance and timing for submission of those reports, those modules will be important as well too. But what those recent spate of regulatory approvals acceptance really reflects to me is a growing confidence in gene therapy, gene and
Mhm.
cell therapy potential. That the field is entering a new phase of maturity where you have to have well prepared sponsors, strong data, and good manufacturing capabilities. And you can navigate the approval process with greater predictability. And the key word here is greater predictability. How do you get that guidance early on and not to receive a CRL later on? Well, I think most of these recent CRLs have been around manufacturing. So engaging with the reviewers throughout the BLA process would be very wise if allowed to continue because CMC is often gating for successful BLAs. But it's a I'm optimistic about the number of approvals. I think maybe 5 this year, and
Mhm.
with maybe over 200 INDs being filed and then a few in the late stage, I expect a greater number of BLAs to be um, matriculating through this process. So it's a good um, it's a good thing that's happening for the gene and cell therapy community. But the bar is being raised every time. It's not like the previous, we won't have another Zolgensma BLA
Mhm.
or Lexterna BLA. The bar is increasingly getting higher and higher and higher for durability, scalability, and CMC as well, and potency and efficacy data.
Sure. And I guess to piggyback off of that, given that the bar is in fact so much higher than it once was, what should companies do earlier or differently to avoid any sort of pitfalls, or what key lessons can be drawn from these recent successful or perhaps delayed BLA approvals in the cell and gene therapy space?
Mhm. I always find it interesting, and perhaps some would think it's nerdy reading, to when there is a BLA approval, go through the summaries, read the summary of the BLA approval. Although it may be very redacted, there is a treasure trove of information in
Mm.
um, those summary of BLA approvals, as well as if you have one of the special designations, RMAT, Breakthrough, Fast Track, this is an opportunity to begin those conversations as you do your process through your drug development. Ask the hard questions. You may not always like the answer, but ask the question. And this is that it's not early engagement, but it's engagement with the reviewers. Be as a team, you should have someone on your BLA team who is saying, who will do the gaps for you. Do that gap analysis. Determine where your strengths and weaknesses are in your packages. Have those proponents and opponents to what you have proposed in your BLA package. So challenge your own BLA packages or your data, not the packages at this point, but what you're putting into the data. Build your modules early, what you can, and really do the analysis on internal analysis before you do submissions, and seek regulatory guidance on external or internal regulatory guidance on those packages that you are will do with for your submission. But be willing to have justification, scientific, and I keep saying this, justification and scientific rationale for the way you want to proceed. FDA has a certain amount of flexibility, and it's a teaching moment as well too for reviewers. So my advice is engagement, 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 early stage, mid stage, and then later stage toward BLA approval, but heighten engagement and get those designations, RMAT, breakthrough designation, which allows for you, is a mechanism for having those conversations. And I know that those designations will have been very useful and meaningful in bringing programs to the BLA stage. I think maybe 100% of the BLA approvals to date have either had those designations, and it's been very beneficial to the sponsors to have those designations because you get that dedicated team who can help you through this process. But early engagement, challenge what you yourself are putting in the package, and be alert or aware of previous BLA approvals to help you build your own package.
Good, good. Thank you. Earlier on, you rightfully mentioned CMC readiness, and I want to make sure we drill down on that a little bit before we move on to RMAT, which you also just mentioned. We know that CMC continues to be a hurdle, and as I discussed before briefly, that the timeline is always, the earlier the better. In your experience, how early should sponsors be locking down manufacturing and analytical strategies to avoid regulatory delays?
Good question again. And again, it's product dependent, but I would say as early as possible. I know that's a catch-all answer, but it's a true answer. I would start that during the interact phase, and also possibly in a type D meeting and through another series of meetings. But the agency or the office understands that, early stage development, you're in the process of process development. You don't know exactly yet about scalability. You have not developed your potency assay. You may have a surrogate potency assay at this point, but discuss with them scalability, potency assay, as well as release criteria. Begin those conversations early on and know your product as well too. what's subject to change. Pick a good contract manufacturer if you're not doing your own manufacturing in-house.
Mhm.
So you need reliability in manufacturing as well, consistency in manufacturing. And if possible, have as many lots, research and development lots, process development lots, clinical trial material, so you can level set among that your clinical trial material has been equivalent to your non-clinical as well as your tox slots, and to show consistency among your products. So I think consistency is very, very important here. And have those discussions with your CMC reviewers. There's not a lot of flexibility, I don't think, in the CMC space. Um, I won't name reviewers, but they've been the reviewers that I have worked with in the past have been there. They've had long careers in CMC. They've seen a lot, experienced a lot, and they are very, some flexibility, but there are rigid guidelines that they follow. And that is to the sponsor's benefit because it helps you develop a safe and efficacious, well, a safe product as well that has good release criteria. And there is some consistency in the manufacturing process as well. So engage early. Again, I'm going to go back with those RMAT designations and the breakthrough designation. Have those meetings, those multidisciplinary meeting, specifically your CMC meeting with your reviewers, and ask those questions. And also in your end of phase 2 meeting, which is a type B meeting, ask those questions and work with your reviewers to develop some guidelines, well, some release criteria, and discuss your scalability and your manufacturing product consistency and that valuable potency assay, especially by BLA. You need that a acceptable potency assay. Start those conversations. I advise my clients start those questions early on in the interact stage about development of the potency assay, because that is always by fate, you've got to have that by BLA stage. So start those questions early on your proposals. And as you learn more about your product, move it from just a detection assay or an expression assay to a functional assay, which is required by BLA approval. But start the conversations early.
Yeah, fair, fair. Um, I want to move on to RMAT and other accelerated pathways, add that to our discussion. So when we're talking about choosing the right pathway, when you are evaluating whether to pursue RMAT or CIT designation, what are the most important strategic considerations sponsors should keep in mind?
So I'll talk more specifically about RMAT and breakthrough designations and accelerated approval, as well as fast track. Most people forget fast track, but fast track has its benefit as well, and you can do fast track designations early on. But as you begin to develop your clinical data, then you're in a position to do your RMAT designations and your breakthrough designation. These are valuable designations to moving your program forward. I want to say not at an accelerated pace, but at a guidance-based approach. Those interactions with the reviewer, they are valuable in the for successful drug development. And plus, I think you get the same review team if they decide to stay FDA. Um, Same review team who will work with you through this whole process. They will know your program, and the program knowledge is subject matter expertise is very, very important for RMAT and breakthrough designation. You discuss so after you get those designations, there's the post RMAT or post breakthrough designation meeting. One, is the first one I think you have. It's a comprehensive meeting. Then you begin to break it down into the different disciplines. Often CMC is the first one you have, or either CMC or either the clinical. But having the ability to be focused in on a particular discipline is very, very important. Ask the hard questions again and go in with a solid data set. Um, you know, Develop a clear meeting strategy where you define your objectives of the meeting, and you want to identify key questions to ask the regulators. It gives you these designations also give you an opportunity to prepare a comprehensive briefing package, which will be required to uh, you know, talk about your background information, summary of your manufacturing process, summaries of your non-clinical data, and also summaries of your clinical data as well, which are the drivers for the RMAT and the breakthrough designation. Some the question was, well, how much data do I need? Is any of 3 subjects enough, or do I need more subjects? Which pathway, breakthrough or designation? I've noted recently, within the last 6 or 7 months, that a significant number of RMAT designations have been granted. So again, I think that reflects the flexibility in the FDA to assist in the development of these programs. They're giving these designations, and breakthrough designations are the bar is a little bit higher, but I didn't say, oh, the bar is higher, don't go for it. Have it. Have that breakthrough designation meeting to see if your program warrants the BTD, or should you go the RMAT pathway? But these designations are very, very important. And it's based on the data set that you have available. Do you always need efficacy data? I think some efficacy data patient efficacy data is important, especially for RMAT, and even a little bit more for breakthrough designation, that will be required. So I think it's an internal decision whether you get your choice in making RMAT and breakthrough designation. Do I have a recommendation? Transformative data, go for breakthrough.
Mhm.
Signal seeking clinical data that gives a signal of efficacy early in a small number of patients. I'd say an RMAT designation is good as well. That would be my choice. But also, don't forget the often forgotten fast track designation. There are benefits to that as well. And I don't know in the investment community anymore if these designations what are they drivers for? I think more in the investment community, people are looking for more late stage clinical data. But these designations should be a signal to the investment community that you're serious about your program.
Mm-hmm.
The FDA is serious about your program, and they see some possibility of clinical benefit to patients. So I think they are good drivers of forward progress, and also they should also be drivers for investment in the community, which is, it's up and down, fleeting, waning, surges, and then nothing's happening. But they are very, very important. And questions are, do you need both? No, you don't need both, one or the other. Although I call at one of the companies that I was at, we did have both for a program. And that program is now moving toward BLA.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say it was due to that. I'm no longer there, but having those designations certainly help with the forward progression to BLA. I think it's approved at this time.
Sure, sure. Excellent. Um, I want to spend a little bit of time, just on some forward-looking statements, um, and just want to get your take on the future outlook of, how do you see the regulatory ecosystem evolving in the next, say, 3 to 5 years? And will the OTP office continue to scale effectively as the number of INDs and BLAs just continues to grow?
Okay. Um, I'll try to attempt to answer your last question first. I, it is my desire for that office to continue to grow with subject matter expertise that expands the discipline CMC, non-clinical, clinical, I'm missing one. No, those are primarily that there's continued expansion and the addition of subject matter expertise to accommodate the growing number of submissions as well as BLAs that will be as a result of, I think, 200 or so INDs that are in place that are poised to move toward development. Um, it's an unknown at this time whether that expansion will be in place, but on the listening tours from the commissioner and the new director, they are supportive of gene and cell therapy and the approval of safe and efficacious products. So I believe that there will be continued growth. That's my anticipation. And this is a great time to challenge it as sponsor. Submit your meeting request. See if that you get granted. Look at the reviewer list. See how many people, when you get your meeting acceptance or meeting grant, carefully look at the reviewers who are on there. See the different divisions that they are is it contracting or is it expanding?
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to be, is the commissioner going to be, not commissioner, director going to be at the meeting? Those are important aspects of that sponsors should definitely be aware of during meeting presentations so you can anticipate the regulatory concerns from your review team. So very, very important. My hope, desire is that there's continued expansion and growth at OTP. It was a very effective organization, so a lot of reorganization at this point. If it enhances the readiness or the ability of the OTP, I'm grateful. But if there's a retraction, I think there will be some angst among
Mm-hmm.
sponsors. But
Mm-hmm.
as I am aware of today, um, I I'm not aware of any sponsors who have had meeting delays, uh, no, say IND, delayed 30-day action notice on INDs. Most of them have come in as required during the specified time. Meeting grants, 14 to 21 days, a review of your package, and notification and information requests during the review period. So that's a positive.
Mhm.
No changes from my end. I've heard, anecdotally, maybe some changes in terms of delays, but my own personal experience at this time is no delays. Everything is proceeding as with this
Mhm.
in expectation, and I hope that continues for sure.
Yeah, same here. Finally, I'd love to hear your advice to developers on what you feel is the most important piece of advice uh, for companies entering early stage clinical development in today's regulatory environment, where we are today.
Yeah. First of all, I'll put a pun in for regulatory. Have a regulatory strategy
Mm-hmm.
that aligns with your company's goals and priorities. Have you should be able to anticipate regulatory concerns that address potential safety and efficacy questions. Ensure that you have CNC readiness, demonstrating you have a robust manufacturing process and scalability. And with that, you also prepare for possible regulatory challenges such as data gaps or study design modifications. I think with the new administration, I think clinical trial design will be a new is a new regulatory concern. So, the umbrella trials, the parachute trials, all kinds of designations for new trials, and your safety concerns for the subjects, your informed consents. How do you redesign your information, your investigator brochure, and the role that the patient plays in here, your informed consent? How much will those be changed? I think those will be new modifications that will occur. I expect the others, CMC non-clinical, uh, those for cell and gene therapy, the agency, the office has seen enough of those so that it's kind of boilerplate at this point, except for, the product specific part of it. But the clinical trial design, I think, will be a new piece that will be implemented, and it may be beneficial for the sponsors. You know, if you're in the rare disease population, the acceptance that you can't do a randomized clinical trial.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to look at endpoints, use of surrogate endpoints, and this is a key issue as well too. Uh, you know, and surrogate endpoints related to clinical meaningfulness benefit may be a topic of discussion as well too. And how long do your trials need to be now, especially in a rare disease population? And if the patient, what's the role of patient-reported outcomes in how the trial proceeds? And, if the patient think there is some benefit or the parents think there is some benefit, how does that influence the how that clinical development uh, uh, occurs? I know we're all aware of the Elevitis, or whatever. It has so many pronunciations. What does
Sareptas,
that
sure.
mean? How does what role does that play, and how will those things impact programs moving forward? But again, it's engagement of the office, and uh, currently, the environment or the culture is we want to see the successful development of cell and gene therapy programs. How that it will be executed remains to be determined. But as a person in the regulatory landscape, I'm optimistic about it. It's a great time to go to the FDA and say while they're in this period of transition of
Sure.
reorganization to, take a peek under the curtains. Or, they said it, well, let's challenge it.
Mhm.
Do your submission. Do not delay. My advice, do not delay any submissions or any regulatory interactions at this time. Proceed on your normal timeline for development. Get the guidance that you need and can turn into actionable items, but do not delay. Proceed.
Excellent, excellent, excellent advice. And that brings us to the end of our episode. And so I would like to thank you, Kaye, for the immense amount of valuable information you shared with us today. This has been an exceptionally thoughtful and informative episode, just as I know it would be. So thank you very much for your time and for spending it with us here on Cell and Gene, the podcast.
Thank you for having me. And the questions have been very insightful. And, it's my opinion, but cell and gene therapy is experiencing a time of maturity, and it's time to move forward. Yes.
Agreed, agreed. Well, again, thank you, Kate Spratt, strategic and non-clinical regulatory consultant at Spratt Advanced Cell and Gene Therapy, regulatory consulting. And thank you to you listeners for tuning in to our special series, FDA Fridays. And we will talk to you soon.
Thank you very, very much.